Welcome to the Broker Collective, episode 111. We have Jason Humeniuk, one of the top producers in the country who I admire, who's probably the most experienced broker. Of course, 16 years being in the broker space, over 30 years, 3 decades. He doesn't look like he is 70. I don't know, he's 50 or 40 something. But anyways, Jason, it's amazing to have you. Yeah, how are you, bud?
We're doing fantastic. And Asim, speaking of admiration, it goes both ways. And I'm happy to be here and really excited to talk to you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Jason. Where do you come from?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for 31 years.
41 years.
Yeah, I've been in finance and banking, specifically on the mortgage side, for 31 years. So it's
31 years. Okay.
yeah, a long time.
And how many years you've been a broker out of those 31 years?
Yeah, so I've had the brokerage now for 16 years this year, but I was previously with several lenders, started up their operations for Western Canada. I oversaw their sales,
Right.
helped hire the underwriting. So yeah, I've been in the industry a long, long time.
Right. So you were a broker for almost you said 20 years?
16 years
16
now.
years,
Yeah.
okay. And then prior to that, you were with different lenders. Were you in BDM roles or different?
Yeah, so started off in the BDM role and then became vice president for Western Canada for the lenders,
Right.
for a couple of different lenders. And that was always great to see both sides of the coin and get a little bit better understanding of how, when you open up the hood, see how the engine works with the lenders. And it made understanding the process a lot better. And I think probably better prepared me as a broker, not only just to broker, but, to instill that confidence in clients because you can speak very clearly about both sides of the
Right.
equation.
Right. So VP, you were in the corporate role
Mhm.
and then you came into brokering. I'm still trying to find how did that transition took place?
Yeah, so I think what it came down to is I made the change right when my oldest son started kindergarten.
Oh,
And I was on a plane 3 times a week
wow.
corporately. And I got to the point that, I'm like, maybe I want to watch my kid go to school. And I was tired of being on a plane that much. And so, I had a conversation with my wife and we decided we would just start our own thing, pull the plug on the corporate world. And I would stay home a little bit more. And I haven't looked back. It's been incredible.
Right. So you said we started. So that means she's also a broker or you would just.
Yeah, she's a broker.
Oh,
Yeah, she's the puppet master behind the scenes.
right.
She controls, and but I get to be the face of the organization.
So 16 years you've been a broker and I know you've been killing it. Of course, we talk all the time, but it's still a huge transition from a corporate role to being, an entrepreneur going into an industry. Because 16 years ago, there weren't that many brokers.
No.
And it wasn't 50% of the industry either, right? Were you, did you have any fears that you'll become a broker and it may or may not work? Or, where are you going to get your business? Or are you going to sustain this?
No, there was definitely no fear, and thank you. Yeah, it's been a good few years, but only because I end up chasing you. So that motivates me to to try to hit those goals. But when I looked at the industry, I feel that if you have confidence, if you've been successful in your previous jobs, you can be successful in anything. You boilerplate a lot of the same habits that you have, a lot of the same skills that you bring, and so I was never worried about that when I look at people coming into the industry, so one side of my family, my father is a lawyer, a crown prosecutor who retired, but my mom was a mortgage broker.
Right.
And
Both entrepreneurs.
they were both, they both, in professions that were high demand. So for me, and actually my brother-in-law still is a mortgage broker as well. So when I came in the industry, I didn't have the illusion that, hey, I'm going to get all these mortgages from friends and family
Right.
because my friends and family were brokers.
Oh,
So that was never a plan for me. And when I talk to new people coming into the industry, I have that conversation with them because I've got friends and family. You really quickly run out of friends and family that need mortgages.
right.
So you've got to have a different plan, right? And I think about, when I started in the industry, even with you, when you started in the industry, Sim, we don't have the tools now that people have available to them. Like, it blows my mind. I was talking to, at an RFA event, I think I told you about a week or so ago, the amount of tools available to a new broker is incredible. Like, you don't even have to do the research as far as, okay, I'm going to do my dial-up modem on my computer and, try to research something,
Right.
with the GPTs, you can go in, you can source ideas and different ways to find business. So I think as a new broker coming in right now, um, I would be a lot more enthusiastic about the
Open.
possibilities than when I first entered it because I didn't have the tools
Right.
that they have now.
So to backtrack 16 years ago, what did your normal day look like?
When I started off, my days were very structured. For the first 90 days, I did the same thing every day for the first 90 days. I would get up in the morning. If I had a deal to work on or a lead, I would spend the top morning in the office following up on that, making outbound calls, have my lunch, and then every afternoon, nonstop, Monday to Saturday, I would hit the road. I would stop by sales centers. I would stop by, realtor offices. I would stop and have coffee with people that I'd set appointments for, but it was meeting face to face and getting out there. Like there's no substitution for getting yourself out there, looking for
I love
opportunities to
Jason.
network.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the primary purpose of building a relationship, not getting a mortgage referral.
Right.
People can see through that so quickly and they can smell desperation.
Right.
Go out there and build relationships.
Right.
If you build the relationship, business will come after.
Right.
And it's hard. And it's hard when you need that paycheck to feed your family.
Right.
But you can't sacrifice the relationship because everything will just crumble. It's like building an upside down pyramid. It doesn't work. You're not going to have any stability. But getting out there, making relationships with people, building business interests, and being able to do that in person. I know we're so want now with the technology to meet people virtually, to talk via email, phone, text, but people do business with people they like.
Right.
And so if you can get out there and do that. So yeah, every day in the morning, work from the office. If I had a deal, worked on it, set some meetings up. And then every afternoon I was out on the road meeting
Right.
people.
Yeah, just like what you said, right? I did the exact same thing, right? And I was talking to a broker the other day. I said, you know, if you talk to someone about mortgages, they know you're a mortgage broker. That's what you're looking for. But be genuinely interested in getting to know them, and maybe not even talk about the business, right? Let them know that you are in this industry. But at the end of the day, as long as you're able to, build relationships, you're going to do well in this industry, right? And that hasn't changed since. But you're making it sound too easy. My journey maybe, was a little bit more challenging. Tell me, what were the challenging parts in the early days? I know that you had, and I'll say this, right? Because you were in the corporate role, you had done really well in the corporate role so from that you had the foundation. But was there any challenges being in this industry?
I don't think it's a difficult industry to be in. So for me at the time, it was priorities. Family was my priority and being around for my kids' games and my kids' schooling. So if we look at my business the last 3 years, 23, 24, 25, I had doubled my business volume and units every year for the last 3 years.
Yeah, you're number 5 in DLC in revenue right now.
Yeah, right behind you, Rasim. Um, but I can draw a line where that happened. It wasn't because like these last 3 years have been the worst 3 years in the market, if you ask most
That is
brokers,
true. Yeah.
right? But we've doubled every year and you've done an incredible job. For me, the demarcation line was that 3 years ago, my kid graduated high school, stopped playing hockey, went to university. So I had a lot more time on my hands.
Right.
And that's what I put then my efforts into at that time. So was it difficult? No, but it was priorities. I would say that it's not a hard business, but you have to work.
Right.
Like nothing's going to come to you. As far as challenges, I mean, I've been through so many cycles on both the lending side and the broker side. Like I've seen property values at the top. I've seen property values at the bottom. I think this is the best time to get into the industry right now. And when I was talking to those two brokers that I've mentioned previously, I don't deal with any realtors. All of my business comes from other referral sources outside of realtors. If you come into the business, you're chasing realtors aren't doing any deals now,
Right.
right? So why I think that makes it a great time to enter the industry is you have to branch out. You have to get creative. I could list right now 10 different referral sources that I think new brokers would focus on.
Right.
And they can go
Can
out.
you name those 10?
Well, I'll give you a teaser. I'll
Sure.
give you a teaser, a few.
I don't want your secret sauce.
Yeah, no. again, I've got my relationships established. I'm not worried about that. But what I said to the brokers were, think about, and I said, go to Claude, go to ChatGPT,
Right.
put in ChatGPT, what are 10 reasons someone would need to get a mortgage or refinance a mortgage outside of buying a home, renewing their mortgage? Take those easy ones right off the table and then see what it says. And I can guarantee you, I know some of it would come up family law, right? Family law is huge.
Huge.
Wills, estates, divorces. 50% of the population gets divorced,
Right.
right? There's a lot of referral sources outside of that. Trustees. For instance, in most provinces, well, in both provinces, there's an amount of equity that you have in your home. And if you have too much equity, you can't go bankrupt, right? So there's some consumer proposals, but there's certain clients that trustees can't help, right? So if you think outside the box,
You'll find something.
there's something, right? And then it's about doubling down on that and how persistent can you be with those referral sources. I always said that high school prepared me very well for sales because I heard
Right.
no from women so many times
Right.
in high school that, you could say no to me 5 times now. It won't
It's
phase
all
me.
good.
It doesn't phase me at all, right?
Yeah.
So being persistent. And I think sometimes with referral sources, they'll just finally send you a deal just to get you off their back,
Right.
right? So being persistent, but persistent in a way that you're not a jerk,
Right.
but letting them know how you can make their job easier.
Right.
If you go to a referral source and you say, hey, can you send me business? I'm a mortgage broker. I'm really good at what I do.
Why do they want to send you business? There are so many other mortgage brokers.
100%.
Yeah.
But if you can find their pain point, and that's what I mean when I talk about working at this. Like, you've got to think through it.
Right.
You got to think, okay, first of all, where is this mortgage? Who could I talk to? What other professional could I talk to that might help someone find a mortgage? You think financial planner, you think family will, estate lawyer, whatever it is. And then you think, okay, how is what I do going to make their job easier? And that's got to be your sales pitch,
Right.
right? So if they're a lawyer, they're getting paid when this deal gets wrapped up. But
How
if
do I
they,
figure out a way to wrap up that deal?
how can I remove the pain point? What's my specialty? Well, my specialty is mortgages and financing. So if there's a property involved and things are hanging on that, I would give them an example. Here's a client that I helped. If you don't have an example, talk to one of the brokers in your office and find an example that they had, and then make that your own example,
Right.
right? And say, here's an example that we had,
That-
in the office where we helped this client, get through this situation. Find their pain points and solve it.
Right.
That's why people will use you.
If I'm Jason and I'm trying to, go after trustees, a lot of brokers would ask, like, where do I go? Who do I find? So just walk me through some of the steps you follow as,
Yeah, I mean, you go to the internet, right? And you find, like, they're part of licensed trustees or licensed.
Right.
You can find if you're licensed, there's a database
Right.
of, who they are. And then you've got to start working, but, networking. Like, I'm not a BNI fan. I'm not a fan of those type of groups. Not to say that they don't work. I've never been in one, so I don't know. But
Right.
to me, I like my networking a little bit more organic. So community groups, business groups that you can get involved in. Anytime that there's an event outside of our industry that I get wind of,
You show up.
I show up because you meet people, right? And you've got to be able to talk to people. So it's no different. Then maybe you meet a trustee or you meet a lawyer, and there's lots of events that go on if you look at different business events around, whether in your BC, Alberta, Ontario, wherever you are. But that's, again, what I mean when I say you've got to work at it. Like, you've got to be smart. Like, the business is never going to come to you. And that's an issue I never had because I worked hard for everything I've ever had in my life, right? I've had to go out there and work at it. I didn't come from an affluent background. So working hard was never the issue, right? And that's what you have to do in this industry, but you've just got to think through it, right? I
Right.
think too many brokers that fail, they're not prepared to put the work in. I mean, it's out there for the taking. We do 50% of the mortgages in Canada as a broker, give or take, right?
And that number is only going to increase.
Yeah, but that's 50% of the market that's available
Right.
for us.
For you to grow.
Right? It's huge. It's huge. So there's no reason. Like, I know that I'm preaching to the choir here because I see your results and how successful you've been in what so many people would say is the worst economic times for brokers that we've seen in the last 3
Right.
years. Certainly in BC, I'd say Ontario would be very similar. But yet you're killing it. We're doing really well.
Yeah, I'm doing the exact same things as you're saying. I'm looking at the glass half full approach, right? I know the amount of business out there, the amount of people, who are going through those pain points, those divorces, those bankruptcies, credit card debt. Where can I help? What kind of value I can bring,
Mhm.
even to our, business partners, those trustees. And okay, well, we'll get your debt paid. So you get the money, the clients out of this miserable situation they're in, and they can start rebuilding their life and rebuilding their credit. I get a mortgage file out of that. So there's a win-win on all ends, right? Where's that
Yeah.
value exchange, right? So one thing you said, you don't work with realtors. And I built my business a lot around realtors. And I hear this in the industry. I've been hearing it for, over a decade. And tell us the reason why a lot of brokers don't want to work with realtors.
I can speak only for myself
Sure.
in that I didn't want to rely on someone else having to be a good salesperson
I see.
to drive the
That
business
makes
to drive the
so
business
sense.
in. I wanted to control that as much as I could.
Right.
And I felt if I was to pursue realtors, I'm pursuing people then that I have to hope will also be pursuing the business
Right.
really hard. Right. And so I took a different approach. And it's not to say I know brokers that have great realtor relationships and work with great realtors. Um, for myself, that wasn't the path that I wanted to go because I wanted a little bit
Right.
more control, direct as far as those referral partnerships.
Right. Yeah. And that makes total sense. I mean, we do rely on their business when we are relying on realtors to feed us the business. So
Hmm.
it is a bit beyond your control. And sometimes it does come down to, something hand holding, right? Like educating them. Hey,
Sure.
we understand the market is low, but they're still,
Yeah.
and I do those calls. And then
Yeah.
it's like, I'm talking to the client, but I'm talking to my introduction partner as well, trying to just tell them that, hey, there are still transactions in the market. I know the times are tough, but maybe you need to get out more, or, where you're struggling, and let's sit down and let's talk about those things. But I want to talk about something else. You said you doubled your business, but I know, you're also, you have a really amazing brokerage, which is Health of Financial, and, we're partners within AIMI. Now, how do you manage the time to do that amount, that much volume, and
Mm.
still be able to train coach brokers and, get them to that level?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing, and this is something that many people in the industry know Dustin Woodhouse,
Right.
and I knew Dustin when he was first a broker when he first started, and I remember having conversations with him, and the first thing they said is, if I could do it all again, I would have hired an assistant sooner, and that bears with me as well. Like I've got a team of 5 now that work just for me,
Right.
so 4 underwriters and a doc person, and that's how I do it because there's no way you can do the volume that you do or that I do if you don't have a team in place to do that. And so you need that assistant because you can't be everything to everyone. And if you want to grow your business, if you want to scale, you have to fire yourself from certain jobs,
Right.
right? You have to be able to do that. So that's how I do it. I've got a team in place that I trust. That is everyone works well together. We're in constant communication. We create an environment where we have a lot of fun. I focus a lot on their well-being. It's really important to me that my team
I was
enjoys,
hearing that by the,
yeah, that they
that
enjoy,
is unbelievable.
yeah, that they enjoy what they do
Right.
and that they're not working weekends. I don't expect them to work 9 o'clock at night or the weekends. If there's calls, I'll take those. It's my business, right?
Right.
I want them to have a good work-life balance. I love a good work-life balance.
Right.
So I want that for my team. And finding everyone that can fit into that is important because if they're really enjoying what they're doing, that makes its way to their interactions with the clients.
Right.
If someone's not happy at their job, they're not going to be happy talking to the client, and you don't want them talking to their clients. So, to be able to do that and then be able to carry my duties as a broker owner, I have to have that team in place. One of the things that I wanted to pop back to, though, you were talking about, um, you know, how you do things, the ways in which you do it when you first start. I cannot talk enough about the people you surround yourself with. And this comes back to, whether you believe in putting things out to the universe
Right.
or just having a positive mental attitude. That's so important to any type of success. And I'm sure you would agree. You and I haven't talked about this, but
100%.
I'm sure 100% you're there. But I am an aggregate of the people that I surround yourself. If you want to show me your future,
Show me your
show
friends.
your friends.
Yeah.
Right. And so I surround myself. Like I would always say that I've never had an original thought in my life. Like I'm not an innovator that way. I'm not a Steve Jobs or a Stanley Kubrick. I don't come up with these unique, amazing ideas, but I borrow from people the ideas that they've done that have been successful, and then I tailor them to what I'm doing or tailor them to my business. But surrounding yourself with people that are at a higher level, like a person who's been in the industry a long time, Hallie Strandland, who I've known for years, and Hallie, when I worked together on the board at NBABC a decade or two ago. And I remember Hallie said to me, and I wish I was smart enough at that point in my life to have really understood what she said. But Hallie said, I always want to be the small fish in the big pond, right? And you do. You want to be the small fish in the big pond, and you definitely don't want to be the smartest person in the room
Right.
because you're in the wrong room.
Right.
Surround yourself with people that you can aspire to achieve what they've achieved.
Right.
And that comes back to the relationships, like getting out and meeting people. Like I'm amazed of the people in my life that I consider friends. And I don't know if it's the imposter syndrome, but you wonder, why are these people friends with me? Right? Because typically they're the smartest people in the room, right? But to surround yourself with those people, like I look at you, I look at Tracy, the people that I have the absolute privilege of saying, these are people that I work with, and that I glean information on.
Likewise.
That's what makes
Honestly,
me better.
100%.
Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah. I look at you, I look at Tracy, I look at Amir, I'm like, I am part of a company which has, top 75 producers. These are guys, look how much they're giving back to the community, the work ethic, back to the broker world, and, even to DLC, right? We're part of a national network, which is also a team of, A players all across the country. But you touch upon team. I think what I'm hearing from you is that relationships are really important to you. So you've kind of built the brokerage is built on the foundation of relationships, just like how your business is built. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, well, 100%. Like our life is relationships. Like everything we do, we interact with people. And if you want to have longevity in the business and you want to have longevity in your business, you've got to have relationships, but they've got to be good relationships.
Right.
You have to be giving back as much as you're getting. And that means I always find that it's interesting what you do for someone that can do nothing for you. Right. To me, that talks about the depth of your relationships. And that's how you have to approach things. Again, you can't be approaching like if you look at someone as a dollar sign, you're never going to have a great relationship in
Right.
that. We talk about the people. So yes, relationships 100% in life, in business, in everything. And we're so fortunate. And you talked about, being part of DLC. The fact that you and I can call
Could be
up
anywhere. Yeah,
Gary Morris
that's
and
true.
have a
That's
conversation
true.
with a guy like Gary who has accomplished so much and be able to say, "Hey, I want to run something by you." Like, can you
Then,
believe that we can do that?
yeah, yeah,
Like that's amazing, right? And so, yes, it's relationships because you then get to draw on the expertise and advice of people that have far achieved or exceeded what you've achieved,
right.
right? And I mean, you can't approach this with ego. I mean, we're all competitive. Like we look at the numbers, we see where everyone is. I'm a competitive person by
You
nature,
too. Yeah,
but I'm not an egotistical person by nature. There's confidence and there's cockiness, and there's probably a fine line between the two of them. But I'm just happy to be around people and learn.
right.
I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning and I continue to learn and to challenge myself that way. And so when I can be around people like yourself, like a Tracy, like a Gary, um, and just sit and listen and hear what they have to say, I will do that any day of the week. I will always make time for that.
Right. I keep coming back to those relationships, and I'm going to ask you, Could you be a bit more specific? How do you build those relationships, with your team, especially? Because I've got a team. Sometimes I struggle with it. I think I'm overdoing it or I'm not doing it enough. What does it look like for you? Because you definitely have it dialed down. I think I've got it dialed down too. We haven't had a single person left, not on what, right? But but I still want to, I'm a student. So walk me through some specific things you would do, maybe month in, month out, sort of, or, annual, how do you maintain those relationships?
Yeah. So there's constant contact. So, I mean, my team's spread out. So we're all remote.
Oh, you guys are all remote.
We're
Okay.
all
Yeah.
remote. So, twice a week, we are on a Teams call together as a team. Now
Okay.
we'll speak with each other, on individual deals and that, throughout the week. But we've got a Tuesday and a Thursday call. Our Thursday call is primarily we'll talk about deals and things that are going on. Tuesday, and usually they go for about an hour. I would say the Tuesday call, sometimes we'll have a lender presentation, but most of the time it's just us laughing,
Right.
just checking in, seeing how everyone's doing, talking about something funny that went on for the weekend. But it's just a touch base. It's really not a lot about work.
Right.
It's just about seeing where everyone's at. But as a leader, you have to know where everyone's at, right? Because everyone's going to be at a different point. Things happen. Like we're dealing with people. So things go on in their life, and you have to be sensitive to that. You have to be able to know, like I expect a lot of myself and I expect a lot of my team, but not to the point that it's burdensome. And I don't have to, like, I've got such a great team. They all work hard because they enjoy it. I don't have to crack the whip for anyone.
Right.
And they know that there's nothing that I'm asking them that I wouldn't do myself or that I don't do myself on a regular basis. So having that communication and leading by example, right? Like I'm taking calls at 9 o'clock and they see the mail, the emails that come through, right? They see the work that I put in. And they know that the work that I'm doing to bring in the business is benefiting them because as the team does well, as the business does well, the team does well.
Right. Can I add to that? I think what I was trying to get at, what I was trying to ask was, I know you even gone as far as taking them on trips, right? Which is like, I haven't done something of that nature.
Yeah.
Like I've done it to Whistler and, we've done some, but you've gone internationally, with that.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot, and like I find out again because I'm big on education. I want my team to be learning, so they have a budget as far as what they can spend on education events, right? And if I see, like, I love to travel, but I also again love to learn. So if I see that there's a conference somewhere, and I'm like, this would be great for this team member,
Perfect.
I
Yeah.
bring them with me,
Right.
right? I bring them all together once a year because we're all spread out between two provinces. We all come together once a year and we just have a weekend where, like last year, we were just downtown Vancouver and we went out to a couple of great dinners and we walked the seawall. We did puppy yoga,
Right.
right? We just,
Puppy yoga.
yeah.
I haven't heard of that yet.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
But we just enjoyed each other's company. We had some fun and there was zero work. We brought in a speaker to talk a little bit about work things, but it was a couple hours and it wasn't, work intensive, but it was just being together and just
Right.
celebrating the team and enjoying some downtime, right? And I'm so thankful because they all took their weekend to do that, right? They didn't have to. This is their spare time that they chose to come in and do that. So, yeah, we do little things like that, but you have to appreciate the team, right? You have to appreciate who you're working with and you have to care for them.
Right.
And if you care for people, by nature, you tend to do things for the people, right? And they're the same thing. They do the same thing back. So I couldn't be prouder of my team and the effort that they put in. Yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
fantastic.
I'm hearing the exact same things I say about my team, that I've got the best team in the country. I think I was struggling with this in my early years myself, where it is hard for me to let go. I thought if I don't talk to the client, they're probably going to lose the deal. And if I don't, jump in, and a lot of brokers struggle with that,
Mhm.
right? Especially, when they're getting from that 20 to 40 million, 40 to 80 million
Yep.
numbers, right? They're kind of like, they can't let go of control. They want to be everywhere at every single time. How do you overcome that, right? Like, what does that transition looks like for a broker?
Yeah. Um, you have to let it go. Like there is no substitute. And part of that is realizing that you're not that important
Yeah,
to the
you-
to the process. We're never as important as we think we are.
yeah.
And I think the moment that really resonated for me was I got a call from a client, picked up the phone and answered, and he's like, "Oh," he's like, "This is Jason?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I thought I'd be speaking with one of your team members." At that time, I had one team member, right? It was just Laura and I, and so that really, I'm like, oh, like people aren't expecting. And I'm thinking everyone needs to speak with me,
Right.
right? And so Dan Martell, who spoke up in Whistler at the DLC conference,
Yeah,
and
that's amazing. I mean,
fantastic,
yeah,
great book, by the way. Buy Back Your Time. If you're a broker struggling with that, talking about how to
gotta pick up.
read that book,
Yeah.
Buy Back Your Time. And Dan has a great saying that he says, 80% of you is 100% awesome, right? So there are things, Asim, that you and I do that likely our team never could because they don't have our experience. They're not who we are. And that's not to downplay. It's just we all come from different paths. And there's a reason that we've been successful for whatever our secret sauce is that we,
Right.
put together and done that. So likely you're never going to find someone that's going to be 100% you. But if you can find someone that's 80% you, that's 100% awesome because then it allows you
To do
to
the
focus
20%.
on the things. There's only one or two things that you and I do that make us successful or make us money. And if we can focus all of our effort into those one or two things, your business will expand exponentially. But if we're filling out expense reports or we're responding to every client, right?
We're doing doc collection and
Yeah, you
paying
can't,
them.
you
Yeah.
can't. You hit a limit and you can no longer expand. So yeah, you're going to lose deals, but I look at where the business has gone the last 3 years.
Right. It is increased.
So I've lost deals, but I've gained a lot more than I've lost, and I would have never been able to hit these numbers
Right.
if I didn't have that team in place.
Right. And I mean, I say this, at the end of the day, you can make mini Jasons, right? You can coach and train
Yeah.
and, talk to them. And with the introduction of now, technology, you could have people sitting between different provinces, underwriting for you, jump on a Zoom call, signings, everything, right? Like, we're in a different world now where, every all these things are doable.
Mhm.
Whereas back in the days, you got to drive to somewhere, talk to your team, you got to
Yeah.
have an office and, all that sort of stuff. And where they physically need to see you. But my team still works out of an office. We're still wired, it's close to my home. We all show up. We're wired that way. But that gives us that community and being there, and showing up Monday to Friday. They have weekends off too, just like what you said. I actually take on the calls. So where do you go from here, Jason? You're already a top performer, right? Like, what gets you out of bed now? You're a top 5 broker currently in Canada, DLC. Like, what's next? What is the drive?
Um, I want to see what's possible.
Mhm.
I want to see what we can build and how we can grow this and where we can find efficiencies. Like, I love the business. I can write a mortgage like you can with my eyes closed. But I want to see what we can become. So what gets me out of bed is the potential of what can be, how we can take better care of our clients, how I can make my team better, how I can, grow as a person. And when you have a business and in our industry, it allows for so much of that. So yeah, that's what gets me excited is, getting out of bed each morning I love working with my team. So to join them, to work and do really good jobs for our clients, and to kick butt.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm a broker, and um, what I'm trying to get at is another thing. What I want to ask is, has your business transitioned, from prime to subprime to, have you done any things over the past 16 years which just sort of change your book, or is it still the same? You're still kind of doing the exact same things you were doing 16 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, I would assume our paths are probably pretty similar as him in that, um, I've done everything. Like I do commercial, I do private, I do B, I do A. Um, but you didn't start with that. Like I knew A mortgages when I started in a little bit of private and
Right.
B, right? And then I remember my very first commercial deal and I had a client phone up who said, "Hey, do you do commercial mortgages?" I'm like, "Sure." Right. And then,
You've like, I'll figure it out.
yeah, and that's exactly what I did. I started figuring out, and we talk about relationships. I phoned up people I knew that did commercial. I'm like, okay, I've got this deal. What do I do? Right.
Right.
But I learned, right. And I took that initiative. Um, where I see an example, though, now, what's probably in the last year that has changed, I would say the last 2 years. So in 2024, I did 3 reverse mortgages. In 2025, I did 10 reverse mortgages.
Wow.
This year, I'm on track to do 35.
Holy.
So we're at, we're over 12 at the end of the first quarter. Into the second quarter. To me, that's a huge opportunity for brokers. Like, I don't know if it's our business, businesses in general. People find it very easy to complain about things. I'm like,
It's everywhere.
complain about,
Yeah.
but that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Look for the opportunities. You complain that the banks are eating your lunch with rate.
Yeah.
I can't compete with these, renewal rates. Great. Find a product that rate isn't the issue, right? If
Learn
you
your strengths.
100%. And, with what's gone on in the last number of years with the cost of living, more people are retiring with mortgages. More people are retiring with debt. And they thought, hey, my retirement plan, I'm not going to have a mortgage. I'm not going to have any debt. And my pension or my investments are going to do well, that it's enough. That is not the case for most Canadians retiring. And that's a huge market right now. And to be able to get out there and find your niche on reverse mortgages, I cannot believe the amount of clients. I always say, like, we're not saving lives. We're not doctors. We're not, paramedics. But in some situations, it's pretty close. This year alone, I've had 3 senior citizens who are having their homes foreclosed on that we were able to get them a reverse mortgage. The problem was they couldn't make their payments.
Right.
Because the debt that they had over the last number of years, the cost of living, their reduced income now that they're retired, we eliminated that. They have no payments. Now they get to live the rest of their life
Right.
in their home for as long as they want. Like, not quite, but you're saving those people's lives.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like,
I put myself in those seniors and I say, well, if I'm 70, am I worried about building wealth? Not really.
no.
I'm on a limited income. I want to make sure that I'm comfortable and I don't have stress of, not being able to pay my mortgage payments and, and my other expenses. If anything, I would love reverse mortgage for myself, because it takes away all the worries of the payments. And a client said this to me recently. She said, Asim, and I said, hey, what do you think? Because, she reached out and she's like, I'm looking for a reverse mortgage. And I said, why do you think you need a reverse mortgage? I was just curious,
Mhm.
right? And she said, I want to enjoy life, Asim, for once. And the moment she said that, it hit me. And I said, it makes total sense. Yeah, no.
I've heard those comments like more than, several times where
Right.
people like, I'm retiring. Like, I want to enjoy this time with my grandkids, right? I want to enjoy life. I want to travel. I don't want to be poor in my house. Like, I've worked hard to buy this house and build the equity in it, for what purpose,
Right.
right? To use that. And here's another really interesting point. And you know how I found all this information out? Is I talked to the people.
Right.
You get out there and you find out what their pain points are and what's, going on. So many seniors sell their home and downsize, not because they want a smaller home, is because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
Those people, if they had their choice, they would have rather grown old in the home with a big backyard that their grandkids could come to in the neighborhood where their friends are, but they've had to downsize because they couldn't afford it. For people to have the ability now to age in place, to stay in their home and not worry about it, takes a huge amount of pressure off them and just helps, like, promotes their well-being, right? Because they're not forced into a situation that they don't want to be in.
Right. And the reason I asked the question was I wanted to understand, what happens in a broker's, life cycle in brokering. Many of the brokers, they kind of get stuck at prime and they stay at that space and they're, or it takes them a lot longer to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They want to, they'll see a product, but they're like, oh, my clients don't need that. Reverse mortgages. I don't deal with reverse mortgages clients. Or, I used to hear when I was starting out and as a broker who was doing a lot of alternative financing. I remember being in a golf course and I hear some of the brokers say, not all there's, but we don't deal with, people with credit issues. We don't want to, we don't work with, we only have doctors and lawyers. And then I realized even doctors and lawyers were getting alternative financing, many of those my clients. But I was just providing a solution to a problem,
Hmm.
because the way things are, people love saving taxes. The tax code allows certain expenses, or people take out less from their corporations in certain years and they leave the incomes behind. And we were just providing a solution. It was nothing more, nothing less, right? If you came in, you had credit issues. So I think when I'm listening to you, it seems like you've been pivoting anytime you see an opportunity in the market, whether that be pivot towards the commercial space, pivot towards the reverse mortgages. Now, do you see any more where we are today in the industry? Do you see that the industry will shift in the next 2 years in terms of lending? Like, do you see more alternative being part of this industry moving forward, or do you see kind of the balance will remain the same?
Right. So if I take a step back before I answer that to when you asked earlier, as far as why go into these different areas, how can you say as a mortgage broker that you can help your clients
Mm,
if you're only doing A?
yeah,
Because maybe they're A now, but maybe they won't be. So how can you say that you really offer a series of solutions to your clients? Yeah,
you
if
can't pick that.
you only deal in one product, how are you different from a bank
Right.
if you're only selling a prime product? So that was the biggest thing is that, number one, again, I like to learn. So anytime something new comes out, I try to understand it because if I can understand it better, that means I may be able to help a client that I wasn't able to help before. Right. And so that's my prime driver for that. As far as new product, I think it's just getting more difficult. Like when you look at the B20 regulations, the AML stuff that's coming out, changes in our industry, whether it's from a regulatory point of view or a financial oversight point of view, um, that's constricting things for clients. So if you want to help your clients, you have to understand better the alternative space, what's available. I mean, clients that don't show income, you and I are self-employed.
Right.
We understand the self-employed very well, right? So how are there ways that we can help those clients? How can we help clients that have had a life event that have caused their credit to crash, right? Like life happens. It doesn't make them bad people.
It,
And our job and
it
our
is what it is.
and
Yeah.
our job isn't to know. Our job is
Sometimes
yeah.
in our own lives.
Our job's to provide solutions and to help our clients out, right? And so
Right.
you have to understand the landscape. Otherwise, you're doing a disservice to your clients because you haven't done the work to understand what's out there. I'm sure you see this. I was talking to a client this morning and they were in a crunch where they had bought a property and suddenly found out that they didn't qualify with their bank, right? Right away, they went to a broker that put them into a private mortgage, a very expensive private mortgage. They came to me and through referral with someone else and said, look, we were having trouble. The payments are really high. Can you help us out? We heard about you from a friend. I looked at the file. They could have gotten a B mortgage at a much better rate,
I see that sometimes.
a much better rate with a much lower payments,
Right.
but the broker either didn't know or it was too easy. That was a disservice to the client
Right.
because they paid fees that they didn't have to pay. They paid a higher rate and it caused them stress. And now they're going to have to pay again but we're able to find them a solution that's going to significantly lower their payment and their rate.
Right.
Right. So if I don't understand as a broker what the products are, and if I'm not willing to put the work in, even though it might be a little bit more, like I'm sure you run into this all the time. The amount of ports that we do where they're porting a mortgage to a new property that we don't get paid on, we do that all the time because it's our responsibility.
100%.
They're our
Yeah.
clients and we're there to help them, right?
Right.
So your question about, do you see more alternative? Where do you see the industry going that way? Absolutely. I think with the constraints that get put on financial declaration and lending guidelines, we're going to see more and more of that. If you talk to a private lender and ask them what their average Beacon score was in 2001, and what their average
No.
Beacon score is now, they're dealing with what would have been an A bank client
Right.
back in 2001, right? And it wasn't about credit, it's about income requirements.
Right. And you gave an example of a broker. I've even seen bankers because, bank on the back end, some of them we know they work with some private lenders. And all of a sudden, this client said that 12-14% mortgage.
That was exactly the situation. It was a mobile mortgage route.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I was like, where is that 4.5 variable? And they're going something like, a 1% differential. All of a sudden, this client's paying 3 times the cost that they should have, they could have obtained the money at. they could have, gotten money for, right? So, I mean, it is, and that's where I think a broker is that one-stop shop, right? If you're a prime client, we'll take you to the prime side. If you're an alternative client, you're not going on the private side, you're going to get an alternative mortgage. And if you're a private client, how do we get you how do we get you out of this debt? And then how do we transition you back to the alternative space or prime space? Because that's where we're truly providing a value.
And that's such a great point, Asim, because when it comes to alternative and private lending, you have to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, you have to have a very frank conversation with the client. Like in some situations with the private, they shouldn't be in a private for 3 years, right? It should be a path to somewhere else. And if it's not, if you cannot foresee any way that's going to happen, you have to let them know that,
Right.
you know what, this is it. If this doesn't change or you can't get there, then your choice is probably selling your home.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be upfront and honest with your clients. But yeah, you also have to plan it out for them. It's not, again, and it's not transactional. If you're transactional in this business, you will not be successful and you will not have longevity. If you put your client in a private mortgage, then it's how do we get them to a B? And you know what? A B may be where they stay. I have lots of self-employed clients that they are happy paying 0.5% higher on the B because where they save on the tax side
Right.
is far
Enormous.
exactly. So, and then sometimes the clients, okay, we're in a B. How do we get you to an A? And you lay out that roadmap for them. Now, you can't get them there. They have to make the choices and do it themselves. But you have to do that. That has to be part of the progression. And again, if it's not, like if they don't have an end, like we see situations where it's a stopgap and things aren't going to get better. Like you've got a client that can't qualify for a B or an A. They don't have the income, but they're not quite ready to sell the home yet. So it's like, okay, I can find you a solution. But you have to come up with a plan at the end of this 1-year term because
Right.
there's not going to be any options for you outside of that. And if you have those conversations and you're open and honest with your clients, then every conversation after that becomes easy because you've already told them,
Right.
what their responsibilities are and what they need to do.
Right. I want to go back to Jason, who's a super successful mortgage broker in the country. Where do you see yourself in the next 2 years, Jason?
Yeah, it's a good question. We grow our business and we find efficiencies. Again, we want to really push the bounds of our potential and see what we can do as a team, how we can better serve clients, how we can use technology, not only to become more efficient, but to make the process that much better for our clients so that it's seamless. So that's our big push. And that's what I see over the next 2 years is, I don't know that we're not going to double our business this year to next year because that would make a structural change that I'm just not prepared to do at this point as far as a staff and everything else. But I think we can get there in the next couple of years through efficiencies and
Right.
through technology to better be able to serve more clients.
Right. So when you're talking about efficiencies, I think you're referring to, the use of AI, in certain areas in our day-to-day roles. Will that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I think so. And I know it's not like the AI isn't this Pangea that's going to solve everything, right?
Problem. Yeah.
Back in the 80s, the fax machine was cutting edge technology,
Yeah.
right? And that was used great. So now you didn't have to travel to sign documents,
Right.
right? So there's going to be a place
And
for
computers came along. So
yeah,
right. People thought we were going to be out of job because the computers are
you didn't have to fax in a deal.
Yeah.
You could just hit send, right? And so technology has always been, and I've always been an early adopter because number one, it's the way my brain's wired. But if I can find a way to create efficiencies in the process so that the process is better for my team, it's better for the client, then everyone's happier. So yeah, I think AI is going to provide that. As a broker, there's a lot of rote activities that we do. And AI is great for that. So if you can teach a machine to do really boring things, that we would have to spend our time doing, then that frees up our time to talk to the clients,
Right.
to go over solutions with the clients, to better explain to the clients what the processes is. And I think that's something that is unlikely to be replaced by technology
Right.
because people still want to deal with people.
100%. Thank you, Jason, for coming on the podcast, man. I love talking to you. Every time I sat down with you, there's a lot to learn about the industry, relationships, efficiencies, and your overall experience and where you're going from here. I'd love to bring you back on another date. We'll see how things fall for you later down this year. And lovely to have you, my man.
Great to be here, Sim, and always great to talk to you. I always learn so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.